what are what do we know about Christmas music? What do we feel about Christmas music? And the first thing is, it includes a lot of singing, and words don't come out of the piano. So I thought, I'm going to have to be creative here, trying to find music that really represented Christmas well, that didn't necessarily have words. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Christmas music is such nostalgia. We love it because we are so familiar with it. Our favorite holiday carols are songs that we've been singing since before we even have memories. So I thought I would start off our program today with something that, well, it's certainly nostalgic to me, and it was a piece that any pianist that I grew up alongside, at some point or another, they picked it up. And I never did, but I thought it was about time that I get around to learning this one. So I'm going to start the program off with this. Thanks. I admit that was an absolute indulgence. It's just one of these pieces that you can't help but smile every time you hear it. I thought I would move on to things that one finds under the Christmas tree and in stockings. And surely, at some time or another, many of you have acquired some little puzzle that looks like this, maybe from Cracker Barrel, you know, a couple of nails, and you spend hours fidgeting with it, and it drives you nuts, and then you sort of figure it out, and it becomes something as simple as blinking. For pianists, a puzzle that many of us go through are the Etudes by Frédéric Chopin. And they're known as some of the more difficult pieces in the pianistic repertoire, but they're also quite clean pieces. And then there was a composer named Leopold Godowsky that had the clever idea of smushing two Chopin Etudes together into the same piece. And so I thought what I would do is I would start with two separate Chopin Etudes, and then I would see what happens if I could actually, put them back together. So, there we go. now I have to remember what's next by looking at paper. That's right. Sometimes there are songs that feel like we've always known them. And despite having never heard them before, they're just something that's already inside. When Percy Grainger wrote this piece, it was just a memory that he had had from a time that he was in England and heard a group of women singing this, the Sussex Mummers Christmas Carol. And if it's a familiar tune to any of you, wonderful, but it wasn't to me, and I haven't known anyone else that was familiar with this tune before I came across it. But it was truly his contribution to Christmas carols for the piano. And I just think it's a lovely melody. So this is the Sussex Mummers Christmas Carol. So the holiday season also seems to always be a time of mystery, of surprises, of things that can't be explained. And while the next piece has a very familiar melody running through it, that melody has absolutely nothing to do with the story behind the piece. So around 1906, the Italian composer Ferruccio Busoni, who really thought he was German and composed music very much like a German, wrote orchestral music based on the story Turandot, which of course was the famous Puccini opera. But Busoni's approach to it was never to stage it. It was just to have music that evoked the story of Turandot. So the story of Turandot is of a princess who basically doesn't want to marry anyone, and anybody that comes as a suitor, she has beheaded unless they, there's some complicated riddle that has to be solved in order to. So finally, a prince comes along and solves all of the riddles, and she doesn't want to marry him, but ultimately falls in love with him. But this particular scene, Busoni took out of his orchestral suite and turned into a piano piece, and it's set in Turandot's bedroom. So we have a Chinese princess suiting this Persian, and somehow there are Indian themes in the story as well. But the tune running through it is certainly English. And it's just a wonderful mix of mysterious and familiar. So this is Busoni's Turandot's Frauengemach, which really just means Turandot's bedroom. got to be one of my favorite endings to just about any piece. But of course, the piece began and ended with a lullaby. And every other Christmas carol really does seem to be some form of lullaby, doesn't it? And of course, there's one that's more famous than all of them, and still one of the loveliest melodies I know. And this was an arrangement of it by a German composer named Max Reger. He called it Weihnachtstraum, a Christmas dream, but it's really just Silent Night. And I thought I would conclude with something that certainly is familiar to everyone. Christmas is really for children. It's that magical time of the year. It's a time of wonder. It's a time of ending one thought and beginning new ones. And it's a time of sharing, and it's a time of family closeness. And a family tradition for me growing up, and probably a lot of you, would have been attending a Christmas performance of the Nutcracker. And it was our real pleasure to be able to take our son Nick, who was, of course, over on the side of the room. Hi, Nick. To take him to a performance of the Nutcracker for the first time just a few weeks ago. And that's the first time he saw the whole ballet, but not the first time he heard the music. And he even tried to play some of the music, and it's just music that's familiar to him, that he's liked. And now I get to play a couple of pieces from the Nutcracker. So this is the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy and the Trepak, the Russian dance. You know, I need to pause one last moment and just thank so much Jan Estes, thank you so much for having me. Ted and Catherine, thank you so much for bringing me into this world here. And thanks to all of you for coming today. And something that I had neglected to mention earlier, but this is a promise that I am going to hold all of you to. Since we're not going to do any singing here today, it is your job between now and Christmas Day to all sing at least 3 Christmas carols with somebody else. Okay? So, a couple of Nutcracker pieces.